Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Fiverr Talks. It's Q&A time, and today we're talking about gig traffic. We're talking about being disqualified from promoting your gigs and all kinds of things, so make sure you stick around for this entire video. That's right, each and every Thursday I answer questions from the comments section from you beautiful people. So if you have a question for next week, make sure you leave it for me in the comments down below. Now before I get into this week's questions, I just want to say thank you to those of you that have reached out to me. You might have heard me mention in some of my past videos that I live in Boulder, Colorado, and you might have noticed that I didn't post a video on Monday like normal, and that's because we had a horrible event happen in our city on Monday. There was a gunman that went into a local grocery store just a couple miles from my house and killed 10 people. It's a tragedy of enormous proportion. The city has been trying to deal with it and process it, and many people that I know were very close to that grocery store just before and maybe even going to be just after this event. So it's kind of hit home for everybody. And to say the least, I just didn't feel like posting a video on Monday. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. And I wanted to take time to talk about that so that I could say that sometimes things happen. When you're a Fiverr seller, sometimes life happens. There's tragedy, there's loss, there's difficulty in your life. And when something happens that you need to just take time to process, don't be afraid to talk to your buyers. Don't be afraid to be a human, to let people know that you need some time to recoup, to grieve, to really process something that's happened in your life. Most of the time people will respond favorably. You know, it's the one downside I see people talking about in this line of work all the time as a freelancer is that you always have to be on. But in my experience, if something bad happens in your life and you just need a moment to process, or you maybe need longer than a moment, just be real and communicate with people, and they're going to be understanding. I know I felt like that this week, even though I didn't have any personal loss in that instance. Just being in the city where something that horrible, that tragic has happened, it's just caused me and everybody I know around me to stop and need to process these things. And so I would encourage you that if you have something, some tragedy or loss in your life and you need to take some time off from your Fiverr gigs, from your business, just communicate with your buyers, and I think it'll be okay. So thank you so much for those of you that have reached out to see if we are okay. I've had clients calling me. I've had comments in the on past videos asking if we're okay. I appreciate that. We are well, and my family is safe, and I know that there are 10 families missing a family member tonight, and so thoughts and prayers are those with those that did experience loss. So we're just going to move on to this week's questions. Just wanted to stop and say thank you just for a quick second. The first question for this week is from Mr. Tech Smart. Mr. Tech Smart says, if I promote my gig on social media, does Fiverr still take their 20% cut? The answer is yes, Mr. Tech Smart. No matter how the customer finds your Fiverr page, even if it's from you promoting it on social media, and I know we've talked about this before as a great way to get people to your Fiverr gig, to get traction, Fiverr is still going to take their 20% off of any purchase, even tips that are left on the platform. So you have two real options. The first option is to just take the 20% cut, let Fiverr have it, run it through Fiverr. It makes your Fiverr gigs stronger, helps them to rank better, grow your business, or you can develop your own website and do work directly. If you're going to do all the marketing work, you should get to keep 100% of the money. So instead of advertising on social media for people to go to your Fiverr page, advertise on social media for people to go to your website so that they can buy from you there or contact you, whatever it is. If there's a way for you to cut Fiverr out of the deal because you did the marketing work, that's no problem, especially if you're the one initiating the conversation. Now, of course, we're not talking about taking a Fiverr conversation and moving it off the platform. That's not the point. Fiverr brought you that buyer. That's actually against the TOS and will get you kicked off the platform. What we're talking about is you doing the marketing work, finding the customer, and then instead of shooting them to Fiverr to lose 20%, shooting them directly to your own website or to your email inbox, where you can then collect payment and keep 100% of those funds. So you have to ask yourself, am I trying to build my Fiverr gig, Or do I want that 20% in my pocket? I would say balance it. There are times when you may want to push people to your Fiverr gig from wherever you can because you want to build that up. But there may be other times, and certainly as you grow, you're going to want this more often than not. You're going to want that money in your pocket. So thank you so much for your question, and thanks for watching. All right, our second question comes from Saeed. He says, I've noticed Fiverr disabling promoted gigs for some users. Interesting. Yesterday, I was told that my gig no longer qualifies to be promoted, even though I'm getting 15 plus 5-star reviews a week. What is going on? Saeed, I would say there's a lot of different things at play here. You may be getting 15 plus 5-star reviews, but are they on that gig that you'd like to promote? What do your cancellations look like on that gig? You could be getting 15 plus 5-star reviews on other gigs and then seeing some cancellations on the gig that you were trying to promote, and thus it no longer qualifies. Maybe you've dropped below the qualifications or the requirements. The hard thing here is that we don't actually know what the qualifications are. We know that there are certain niches, certain categories that Fiverr has chosen to open promoted gigs up to, but within that, they're hand-picking sellers and gigs from those sellers to qualify. So if Fiverr looks at recent gigs, recent transactions, recent secret feedback from those buyers asking them how their experience was and it was not positive, they would likely remove you from that promoted section so that you can no longer promote that gig. There's a lot of different things going into it. It's not just, hey, I'm getting 15 plus 5-star reviews a week. No, you have to look at it and say, how's that gig performing? How are the nuances within that gig performing? How are my cancellation rates? How are my response rates? How are, people telling Fiverr that I'm doing? What kind of a quality product am I delivering? Are people leaving feedback or are they not? It all has to do with a multitude and a culmination of all of those things. So I would say just keep doing your work. Keep doing the right things. And it doesn't matter whether you can promote your gig or not. What matters is that you're growing, that you're continuing to get those good reviews. And if you're actually doing that and staying away from cancellations and late deliveries and things like that, you will rise to the top of the search results and you'll have the opportunity to promote your gig again in the future, which if you see my video about that, I don't think you should even worry about because it's really not as lucrative as you might think for everyone. Maybe it is for you, but I don't think it's as lucrative as we might think it's going to be over time. Okay, thanks for your question and thanks for watching. Our next question comes from BA Mindset. He says, I feel like my orders have slowed down. Everybody feels like that every now and then, right? Some of us just feel like it every week. It feels like we go up and down. It's the entrepreneurial roller coaster, but he feels like his gigs have slowed down. His orders have slowed down. Do you think having orders in revision for a long period of time could have an effect on that? I had one guy turn a 3-day job into 25 plus days. That is a really, really good question. I can say from my experience, I don't think it does. In fact, I've had Fiverr success reps tell me that they'd rather a gig sat in revision than for somebody to come back and be confused or have difficulty requesting revision through the inbox and causing problems or reaching out to customer service when they could have just talked to you. It being in revision means that you and the buyer are still working together to complete this project to a positive end. Fiverr likes that. I believe they like that process, and I don't think they're docking us for keeping things in revision. I've had gigs in revision for months. I even had a gig in revision one time for over a year. This guy just would not get back to me. We did the preliminary work, and then he wanted to change, and then he didn't know, and it didn't seem to affect my stats at all. It just simply means you're still working together. Now, the one way that it actually could affect your rankings and your statistics is if you're not closing gigs. If you have orders come through and they just sit in revision and you have dozens in revision and you're not closing them, because the more orders you close, the more ratings you can get, the more ratings you get, the better your ranking. So you have to think about it that way. Things sitting in revision does prevent you from getting more ratings, closing jobs, and that is important. It also affects your Fiverr stats. So in some ways it does, and in other ways I don't think it's having a negative effect just because you have something in revision on your Fiverr queue. So don't worry about it too much, but realize every little thing makes a difference. All right, thanks for your question and thanks for watching. Sandra Poku. Sandra is a dedicated follower of the Fiverr Talks channel, and she has a question today. She says, can you explain what Fiverr is doing regarding pro-level sellers versus top-rated sellers? Oh, we talked about this a little bit last week, but we'll talk about it more. This is a unique spin. She says, I don't understand how a pro-level seller can keep their status as a, quote, professional, but still only be rated as a level 2 seller. Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of naming them as a pro seller? Sandra, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Fiverr's little experiment with pro-level sellers is confusing. at best, and it's kind of a failed experiment. We've seen them go in different directions with it over the years, and we've seen a lot of the things change, but essentially, it's not what you think it is. Being a pro level seller does not mean you're a Fiverr pro. It means that they consider you to be offering a professional level service at a professional level price. It's not the same as being a top rated seller. Being a top rated seller means you have been proven, tested, you have been on the platform, you are a pro of Fiverr, meaning you're a pro when it comes to selling on Fiverr. You offer a great service. You get great reviews. I believe top-rated sellers also offer professional level services, but often their prices aren't as such that they might be named a pro-level seller. That's a lot of the feedback that I've gotten on some of my gigs, is that I need to raise my prices to become a pro-level seller, and I don't see the merit in doing that. And thus, the pro level section, the pro section, is really Fiverr trying to entice people to come in from the outside, use Fiverr as a way to get more revenue streams going in their business. Agencies, larger organizations, just using Fiverr to bring more customers in. So I think that they're two totally different things. It is confusing, and I think for the most part, the average buyer on Fiverr is not necessarily paying that close attention as to whether you're pro verified or not. They just want the best service at the best price that they can afford that works for them. So don't be discouraged by it, but I agree, it is and can be confusing. Thanks for your question, Sandra, and thank you for watching every single week. Our next question is from Mohammed Assad. He says, how much time should I be staying on Fiverr every day? What a great question. What's the best time to be online every day? Is there a way I can remain online 24 hours a day? Muhammad, I know a lot of people in India and Asia that ask these questions. They worry that the American business day, kind of that 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time or whatever it is, being kind of the standard for when you should be online to work. I don't necessarily believe that. If you're a good seller, you could work on Fiverr 24 hours a day. It's not healthy, and you shouldn't do that. I don't think there is a, quote, best time to be online. Certainly when you get flipped with a buyer on time zones, it can make things difficult. I've seen that personally. I work with a lot of people in New Zealand, a lot of people in China, a lot of people in Australia, a lot of people in India and Asia, and at times I see an influx in those buyers. I don't know why, rather than others that are local to the states where I am. But it makes it hard because it slows communication down. When I send a message, they don't get it until I'm asleep, and then they respond, and I don't get it till they're asleep. And so there's no way to respond and communicate more than once a day. So it does slow things down a little bit. But I don't think that means if you're in that part of the world, just flipped from the American business day, that you need to stay up and work in the middle of the night. I've heard of people doing that. I wouldn't recommend that. That's not healthy. That's not good for your rhythm or your life. And I certainly don't think there's any way you should try to stay online 24 hours. Now, I know you're not meaning physically being online, but you're talking about turning the online status on 24 hours a day. You actually can do that through the Fiverr app. That's where you set your online status. As long as the app is open and running in your phone, even in the background, and you have that online button checked, then it will show you as online 24 hours a day. So I would just say work the hours that you think work best for you and make that work with your Fiverr schedule. And if you're really doing great work, it won't matter what hours of the day you're working. People will be willing to work with you. So thanks for watching. Thanks for your question. John Jacob Chiracha. John asks, he's got our next question. He asks, are the number of impressions, clicks, etc. on the Fiverr app real time, or is there a specific time that they update? John, that's a really great question, and I don't know the exact answer for you. I do know that they are not real time for sure. I know that. I would say they either update every day, or my suspicion is they update every week. I see those stats change about every week, and those are stats that I don't look at very closely. In fact, if you'll look, sometimes the numbers on the app are different than the numbers you see in your dashboard. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know I don't put a lot of stock in those impressions. I may glance at them every now and then. I may look at them sometimes, but I don't watch them like a hawk. So I don't know the answer to this question, but I would say no, it is definitely not real time, and they probably update, my guess is every week. At the very least, they might update once a month, who knows, or maybe every 2 weeks, but it's not real time. These are just figures and facts to give you some general ideas of how your gigs are responding, but they are definitely not real time. Thanks for your question, and thanks for watching. We got a couple more here. You answer a couple more. All right. How about Zanique? Zanique says, if a person's username is Epic Gamer, should I still be calling them by their name? You watched maybe last week, a couple weeks ago, we talked about this. In a Monday video, we talked about using people's names as a way to be personable and communicate better. But he says, if their username is weird, like Epic Gamer, should I be calling them by their name? It seems a little weird to call them by this username. I would say no. Don't call people by their usernames. I think that's a little strange. I hate it when people call me by my username. Call them by their name if they give you a name. If they don't give you a name, don't call them by a name. Just say, thank you. How can I serve you? You don't need to use their name if you don't know it. But a lot of people sign the end of their messages with their name. Megan, John, Rob, Muhammad, Khalif, whatever it is. If you have a name, use it. But I don't think you need to use usernames. That's a little strange. I agree. And our last question this week is from David Ricardo. He says, how do you deal with clients who write you and seem completely interested, but then they never answer your response? David, I think this is just a fact of online life. Sometimes people come in hot. They're really interested. And they want you to believe they're interested so that you'll respond quickly. But the truth is, maybe they sent that message to 20 people at the same time. And they're just looking for one response they like, or the first person to respond. Maybe you weren't the first person, whatever it is. This is going to be a part of the online world. Sometimes people just don't respond, even though they ask you for information and you gave it to them. It just happens. You can always try to follow up again in 24 or 48 hours to see how that helps. And sometimes it does jog their memory and get things going again. But I would say focus on your responses a little more. Maybe the reason they're not responding is because your response either didn't answer all their questions, wasn't well written, wasn't personable enough, maybe didn't give them a good enough reason to say, hey, I'd like to move forward with this person and get them to do this work that I inquired about. Whatever it is, look at your response. See how you could respond in a better way and actually make this a better experience for them and a higher likelihood for them to respond. Remember something I've said many times on this channel, I always end with a question in my messages, trying to get them to respond again. Hey, here's your answers, but would you like me to send you a custom offer? Are you going to be doing this or am I going to be doing this for you? Is there anything else I can help you with? Try to lead them to a response in some way, and maybe that will help. So that's all our questions for this week. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you have questions for next Thursday's Q&A session, well, just put them down there in the comments for me. I will get to them as fast as I possibly can. I know I'm not answering everybody's questions at this point because there are so many coming in and you guys are being so great. This channel is growing every day. I love it. And I'm thankful to be able to share this knowledge and information with you from my time in the trenches, almost 8 years on the platform here coming up. Thanks so much for being here with me. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, consider subscribing. But until next time, keep doing because the future favors the doers.